If you're new to Blender, you might be wondering, how do I duplicate objects? Or maybe you're an active user, but still you're wondering, how can I efficiently duplicate entire groups of objects without having to put much burden on Blender? In this tutorial, we'll answer all these questions and more as we explore the powerful tool of object duplication in Blender. In fact, at the end of this video, we are going to learn about the special third method of duplication in Blender. So, buckle up, grab your mouse, and let's start blending. Before delving into the topic at hand, it is crucial to grasp the fundamental concept of object and mesh data. Object data encompasses all the information pertaining to an object's relationship with the 3D space surrounding it, such as its transforms. To elaborate further, object data is essentially the metadata that defines an object's position, rotation, and scale in the 3D space. In contrast, mesh data is the actual physical representation of the object's shape, consisting of vertices, edges, and faces. When navigating the object menu, you will come across two types of duplicate options: duplicate objects and duplicate linked. To fully comprehend the distinction between these two, you must first select duplicate object or use the hotkey Shift plus D. This will generate a copy of the object and immediately place you in move mode. You can then move the cursor to your desired location and left-click to place the duplicate. If you press Escape, the movement operation will be canceled, but the duplication will remain. You can still locate and move the duplicate by pressing G. Additionally, you can view any duplicates that have already been created in the outliner. To create a duplicate linked, simply access the Object menu and select Duplicate Linked or use the hotkey Alt plus D. The subsequent steps are essentially the same as those for duplicate objects. To differentiate between the two, you can rename them accordingly. Both duplicates will appear identical to the original object. However, if you transform the original, the duplicates will remain unchanged. Conversely, if you alter the material color of the original, all duplicates will be affected. This begs the question, what truly sets these two options apart? One of the primary distinctions between the two options is that the duplicate object feature allows for separate object and mesh data for two cubes. In simpler terms, any modifications made to the original cube in both object and edit modes will not affect the duplicated object. The outliner will display a new mesh that has been created and named differently from the original, indicating that not all data blocks are shared and some are hard-copied. This is why it is referred to as a shallow link. On the other hand, the duplicate linked option, also known as the deep link, allows for individual object data while sharing mesh data, meaning you can even add modifiers to the original object in object mode. But if you do some tweaks in the mesh while in edit mode, it's going to be reflected on the duplicated object too. The outliner will show that both objects share the exact same mesh data. As a result, the memory usage will be significantly lower than that of the duplicate object option. Furthermore, it is important to consider the practical applications of duplication techniques in Blender. When and where should these techniques be utilized? The duplicate object option is ideal when changes need to be made to one object without affecting the copied objects. On the other hand, the linked duplicate option is the preferred choice when future changes need to be made to all of the copied objects. In situations where numerous copies of the exact same object are required for a scene, linked duplicates are undoubtedly the best option. Creating a new set of data for each identical object is not only wasteful, but also causes Blender to work harder to keep track of them all. At times, it may be necessary to create a linked duplicate that shares mesh data. However, you may later realize that this is not the desired outcome, and instead require separate mesh data for your duplicate object. In such a scenario, the question arises as to how to separate objects that have been linked duplicated. To perform this separation, navigate to the Objects menu for your linked duplicate and locate the Relations option, which is located halfway down the list. Upon opening this menu, you will notice the option to make a single user. Hovering over this option will reveal another menu, from which you can select the Object and Data option. This will effectively separate your meshed data from the original object, converting your linked duplicates into appended duplicates. In the realm of object duplication, there are a variety of techniques available to streamline the process. For instance, it is possible to duplicate multiple objects simultaneously, or even single vertices, edges, or faces in edit mode. However, it is worth noting that linked duplicates are not available in edit mode, as the vertices, edges, and faces lack submesh data. That being said, it is possible to duplicate the entire geometry within edit mode. Despite the presence of two cubes, they will function as a single object, with a singular point of origin. This can be observed in the outliner, as no new objects are created. It is important to note that this concept of appended and linked duplicates also applies to non-mesh objects such as cameras and lights. For example, if a linked duplicate of a camera is created, the focal length of both cameras will change in tandem, whereas appended duplicates will not affect the original camera. However, when attempting to duplicate a cube with the Duplicate Object option, it may come as a surprise that the duplicated object is affected when the mesh is edited. To understand this phenomenon, navigate to the Editing tab in the Preferences menu and select the Duplicate Objects option. The duplicate data checkboxes determine which data is copied with the duplicated object and which data remains linked. Any boxes that are checked will have their data copied along with the duplication of the object, while unchecked boxes will have their data linked from the source object that was duplicated. What if I say there is a third way to really duplicate the objects in Blender? Yes, you can create duplicates by just simply copying and pasting the objects, but what really differs this technique from the other two? As we have already seen, Appended Duplicates has separate object and mesh data, whereas the linked duplicates has own object data but shares the mesh data. But one thing, if you notice, these two duplicates has exactly the same material data. This is where copy-pasting the objects differs from the rest. If we duplicate by this method, it will share nothing with the original cube, not even the material data. That means you can transform in object mode, you can edit the mesh in edit mode, and even you can change the material for the duplicates, which doesn't affect the original or vice versa. Now, if you are still eager to expand your knowledge of Blender, we invite you to watch our video on proportional editing by clicking here. We trust that you have found this tutorial to be informative and useful. Should you have any inquiries or feedback, kindly leave them in the comment section below. Now it is your turn to unleash your creativity with object duplication in Blender. Stay tuned and happy blending.